Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Cy Elborne. I am the past president of Schein Canada, presently acting as an active executive advisor to the firm here in Canada. For those of you who don't know me, I've essentially spent 2 lifetimes in the dental industry, and gives me some opportunity to provide perspective to a number of things that we're going to discuss this evening. I'll go on record, Prince Harry and Amanda Markle, that I'm not being paid for this evening's performance. Unfortunately, I'll talk to Graham about that at another time. But I look forward to some stimulating conversation tonight with our colleagues here. We're going to cover 3 major topics and some interesting questions as well. We're going to cover the pandemic, experiences with the dentalcorp journey that our esteemed colleagues, the panel here, can share some thoughts with you, and practice evaluations. I think a concern for many people, or an interest for many of you. But allow me to introduce the panel, and you'll excuse me for reading just a little bit their bios. Amit Puri, who I actually know, U of T grad, class of 2000. Amit created a brand, ToothWorks, consisting of 14 dental clinics across Ontario, which he now operates. Past president and a current board member, a U of T Faculty of Dentistry Alumni Association, and most recently partnered with dentalcorp in January of 2019. Dr. Brian Rittenberg, you can't see him, he's in my top left on my screen, graduated from the University of Western Ontario in 1992 with a bachelor's degree in psychology. We're not going to call on Brian to help us with our anxiety through this with that, but he then went on to complete his dental degree, specialized training in oral maxillofacial surgery, and a master's in bone biology at the U of T in Toronto, and U of T and Toronto General Hospital in 2003. Brian is attending surgeon, the Regional Treatment Center for Temporal Mandibular Joint Reconstruction at Mount Sinai Hospital. He has served as a president of the Ontario Dental Society for Oral Maxillofacial Surgeons, and is involved with the Royal College of Dentists of Canada. Brian is a fellow of the International Team of Implantologists. Very impressive resume. Dr. Scott MacLean, you on top right. Scott has lectured in Canada, the US, and internationally. Graduated from Dalhousie Dental School and was the class valedictorian, so we can expect him to be an eloquent speaker this evening. In 1991. Scott has taught at Dalhousie Dental School for more than 15 years in the areas of implant elective, aesthetic elective, and general dentistry. He's a member of the International College of Oral Implantologists, the Canadian Academy of Restorative Prosthodontists, Canadian Academy of Aesthetic Dentists. Scott is also a fellow of the Greater New York Academy of Prosthodontists, a fellow of the American College of Dentists, the International College of Dentists, the Pierre Fauchard Academy, and the Academy of Dentistry International. And I, as I've said, am Cy Elborne. So, this evening, just maybe just a couple of comments, and I tend to ramble a little bit, but I'll try to be brief. All of us have really navigated these incredibly new and different and challenging times over these past 12 months. My experience in the dental industry would suggest, and I've seen so many things happen over the years. From I remember gas shortages in the 70s. I wondered if I would have to ride a bike to make dental calls, and I was prepared to do so. And we've seen economic challenges all over the place. What I can share with you from a very long period in a long history, that these speed bumps come along, and they all have different magnitudes to them. But the dental industry and the dental profession is somewhat resistant to these things, and certainly resilient. And I think that they've been particularly creative in how you've gone about in the professionalism to navigate this pandemic. And if I would share with you a barometer, I think most of us, and you'll hear more about it tonight, is something of a bounce back in the industry. We measure our how the business is going, how the industry is going, is by our merchandise sales. It's just it's what dentists need day in and day out. Schein enjoys about 40% market share, slightly higher with dentalcorp. Thank you, Graham and Nate and Guy. But that market share would indicate what's happening with dentists. And in Q3 and Q4 of last year, we had double-digit growth in our merchandise sales, and that was included some PPE for sure. There was a lot more of that bought, but general consumables spot were a clear indication across the country that the dentistry was rebounding. I sense that there's a good deal of curiosity and anxiety at this time, which creates a lot of hard questions for us and things to wonder and to ponder. Tonight, we're talking about a lot about business and a lot about dentistry, but I ponder for a moment to think about how we define success and what it means to us, for you, for your families, for your teams, for your patients, and for your business. And I think that through tonight's conversations, we want to try to understand a little bit more about and consider today what role dentalcorp might play in your success moving forward. I've witnessed dentalcorp's growth. I've talked about this before for some of you that heard me speak a little bit about dentalcorp. I met Graham about 8 or 9 years ago when he sat with me, and he had about 8 to 10 practices and had a vision for where he was going to go. And success is often measured actually in business about how you have a vision and where you're going to go and how you execute on that vision. I might talk just momentarily about that, but we all know that the 8 to 10 practices that DCC was when I first met Graham has grown to, and I don't know the exact number today. Somebody could quote me on it, is well in excess of 450 practices. And if you look at that on a ratio basis, we do our math often competing with the U.S. and if you look at a ratio of about 9 to 1, so if you were to multiply on a pro rata basis, on a market share basis of the 450 clinics odd that dentalcorp has today, to some 36, approaching 3,600 to 4,000 dental clinics on a ratio basis, comparing that to Heartland, if you will, in the US, would suggest to me that you're somewhere between 3 and 4 times better than they are. So I think that that clearly indicates the success that dentalcorp has in the community. And I think about the community, and it's a relatively small, we all tend to know one another. The docs are talking today back and forth, whether it's in Halifax or in Toronto, or if we had dentists here from BC, you are well known, and there's much that's said. I think that in building this, and the questions that we're going to have is for dentalcorp to get to where it is today, has to be exemplary in what it does in building trust. And I define trust just a little bit. It's a little thing about you have to be well intended, and think about this if you're having conversations with anybody that represents dentalcorp or any dentists that have had experiences. First of all, is the organization well intended? And I certainly think that's been well demonstrated. And secondarily, do they have the ability, if you will, the capacity to actually meet the commitments that they make to you? And then the last one, of course, is execution. We talk about execution in business on your vision and your goals that I think Graham and his team and all of you together have clearly demonstrated that quote unquote do say ratio. You do what you say you're going to do. And I think that that's an important thing. These are all key elements in business. And I think that in looking at that and those elements, and if you will, the success that dentalcorp has had and continues to have, clearly demonstrates that, to me anyways, that they're the gold standard, not only in Canada, but perhaps globally, if you will, in what they're doing for their partners and creating win-win situations for them, their partners, their businesses, and their patients. So to that, let's move on to the panel that we have here that we introduced that are extremely well qualified with their own backgrounds and their journey with DCC to provide some valuable insights, some guidance, and some shared experiences to just where we are today. So with that, let me just start with the questions that we put together. So first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about the pandemic and some of the panelists' view on the pandemic. So let me start with you, Scott. You partnered during the pandemic, interesting time. What made you partner with dentalcorp? First of all, first question. Second one, do you know partners that joined dentalcorp prior to your having discussions? Did you maybe chat with others and get some perspective? And what advice do you give to new partners in the network? Scott.
Thank you, Cy, and great introduction. I have to say I'm not being paid either to come here. I come out of the goodness of how I feel. And I think that's important to realize that I'm not here to give a paid announcement or something like that. And so I'll throw that out there. But my kind of view and what happened with us coming through pandemic, I'm sure the same as every dental office and dental people that are involved with dentistry, it was kind of very stressful, and we were coming into a point where the pandemic was blossoming a little bit too fast. We didn't know what was going on. And what I found with Dental Corp, it was really a good time. So I kind of quote Dickens, it was the best of time and it was the worst of time, because I couldn't have probably partnered at a better time. And what I mean by that is I didn't officially partner till in November probably, but they treated me like a partner right from the day one of the pandemic, bringing me under the umbrella of Dental Corp and allowing me to have my team feel some safety. I found them incredibly nimble, so very quick to get to the point and help me with the things that I needed to have help. So I think this help came from a number of different people, whether it was people helping me do evaluations to kind of find out exactly what was going on and where we were going to go as a team, because we really found it so difficult. Now, who did I talk to? I spoke with people within Dental Corp, of course, and I would encourage you, if you're thinking about this, I would encourage you to get your, some of your evaluation done. Start talking with the people at Dental Corp, but also start talking with your professionals, your accountant, your lawyers, and start to see what they're hearing. Because I was only hearing good things. Some of the things I heard were, these shares that you end up buying some shares when you're buying in as a partner. The shares were actually some of the people that I talked to about how they joined early. The shares that they got were actually worth more than what they got paid for their practice. And so that's very encouraging for me as a dentist to think that I'm becoming a part of this bigger, growing entity. And I think that's really important side. And I was glad that you talked about, those kind of execution and how this business is, as you're becoming a partner and getting involved, you start to understand that there's more that you didn't understand about Dental Corp that is really positive. And I think that is because sometimes you hear little rumors. I've had extremely positive things to say about Dental Corp. And I think that, sometimes there's jealousy or whatever, but it is something that I would encourage everyone to be part of. So I think just to kind of sum that up, I think it's a really nimble organization. It's very kind of helpful to me. It makes me kind of breathe a little bit easier with some of the information that I got really early. And actually, I was getting great information from my organizations within dentistry, but actually I was getting it quick through Dental Corp. So my hat goes off to them.
Thanks, Scott. Amit, a question for you, and this is the good one. So get out your crystal ball. So Amit, your personal view for the dental industry post the pandemic and over the next 10 years. Do you think growth companies like Dental Corp will continue in the future at the same rate? Where do you see it going, Amit?
Okay, so I'll break that up into two questions, and thank you, Cy. I feel like the dental industry was on fire before the pandemic. I feel like my offices were doing better than they had ever done, approaching March of last year. And dentistry had been trending upward for many years up until that point. So I think that it will come back. I think in many cases, in many offices, it has fully come back. And I think when it totally does, it's going to come back bigger than it ever was before, and will continue going up on that regular sort of trajectory that it had before the pandemic. Personally, I've had several patients who have put off their dental needs during the pandemic. And as such, there's a large pent-up demand for all facets of dentistry, especially cosmetic dentistry and orthodontics. As for your second question, the growth rate, I know that Dental Corp added some amazing clinics during the pandemic, like the clinics of my two co-panelists here. In terms of the growth rate in the last quarter, I know that they added 30 clinics to the group, which is a huge number. And the good thing is that the growth rate is already back to what it was in 2019. So my personal viewpoint is that this growth rate will probably accelerate from the 2019 numbers to a greater one once more dentists realize the benefits of having a partner to share some of the stresses with, some of the burdens with. And personally, some of my clinics were hit harder than others. And I'm speaking specifically about the ones in downtown Toronto. Downtown Toronto has been a ghost town for much of the past year. My other clinics outside of Toronto rebounded a lot quicker. I was thankful to have a partner like dentalcorp to help shoulder the load, because during the pandemic, they secured PPE for us, helped us with making all the modifications that we needed to our offices, helped with getting our employees on the right job programs, and created marketing materials so that we could let our patients know that we were open for business and that it was safe to come in. If I had to do all these things on my own, it would have been tremendously stressful. So it was great to have them there. And I'm sure my other co-panelists can agree with that.
Great, thanks, Amit. To you, Brian. During the pandemic, how do you feel your stress level of concern was in comparison to independent dentists? An interesting question.
Thanks, Cy. And I'll preface this, and those of you who are watching who know me will know, in general, we're a pretty stressed out group, my partners and I. We hide it well. But I mean, like everyone else on this panel tonight, and probably most people watching, I think March was a super stressful time. I think regardless of where you were at, whether or not you were a partner with dentalcorp, I think from our standpoint, there were a few stresses. One is interestingly, and Scott had a very similar journey, is we were at the very final stages of formalizing our partnership just before the shutdown. Like within days was their planned sort of close date. So that was an added layer of stress. We have 3 big clinics with about 70 employees and making phone calls to lay off. We kept one clinic open, but we laid off a number of people short-term, furloughed them, and there was a number of stresses. But what I'll say is one of the nicest phone calls that we got, and it was probably within 24 hours of that Sunday message that came out from our Royal College shutting us down, was from Graham and Nate. I think it was a difficult call that they had to make to us. And it was, on the one hand, it was sort of, number one, reassuring us, and there was absolutely no hesitation on their part that regardless of what this pandemic was going to do to dentistry, that the partnership that they wanted to formalize with us was untouchable, and that made us feel great. So that was one layer of stress, I can say, that was sort of eliminated pretty quickly. And as Scott mentioned, there was also a very wonderful gesture of reaching out to us and making sure we had what we need to keep our clinics, our one clinic running. We had one of the only maxillofacial surgery clinics in Toronto that kept its lights on and doors open to manage emergencies. And what was interesting is as we made some very nice informal connections with many dentalcorp partners during that time who needed emergent surgical help for their patients. So we felt like partners, and I think that did help eliminate a significant layer of stress. And my hat went off to Graham and Nate and Guy and the team at the time, because that to us, one of our first thoughts on that Sunday when we got the message was, what now? Like, we've invested 2 years. It was a long road. We've invested a long time, and we were just not sure where that shoe was going to drop, and it dropped in the right way, and we were very happy. So I think, like anyone out there, we did the best that we could, and we're happy we are where we're at now.
Great, thanks, Brian. Scott, Of course, with pandemic and otherwise, I mean, regulatory and compliance is a major issue, certainly in the healthcare industry and in the environment and in your practice. So from a compliance standpoint, how does dentalcorp communicate with each clinic and support you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, we have a director of operations who is phenomenal, Jackie. She has a real touch that I find that is gentle, but also persuasive. And, I think that what I say is that she's helped, and also the organization has helped to get the information to me via the web, via direct, via all kinds of different avenues, that there's constant communication, which is really important. One of the things I really liked about how this all was structured is the ability to have accountability. And accountability, I think we've improved tremendously by being a partner within dentalcorp. And so to get back to the regulations, we have had a number of things coming from our organization, but we've also had really great really excellent topics about how to deal with the virus, how to deal with structure in terms of your team, because it was very stressful for our team to go through this. We're fully operational at this point in Nova Scotia, and I wouldn't be saying that this dentistry thing has come back like gangbusters. It's unbelievable how many people are kind of asking for advanced dentistry and things that I'm staying late. And it's very encouraging to see that. I know, some of the areas of the country have been hit a little bit harder because of, international airports and things like that, but it's very encouraging. And being a part of this organization, the regulations, I really have not had a major problem with it. But I would say that they're like, I would say that they're like a pillar for me to get information. If I need information, here's that. And I heard Brian talking about this a little bit. When I was negotiating, I was on the other side a little bit, in terms of I have my own interests. So once you get past that and you're on the team, you're on the dentalcorp team, then all of a sudden there's a lot of stuff that opens up, and it had already opened up because you have to get, past the negotiation. But the good thing is you end up, getting some money and getting things I thought were very fair. And so anyway, I would say that it was more like they were a crutch and help through this whole pandemic was the big word. It's the big word right now with regulations. But, education, I think if you're an associate, it's a really great thing to get involved with as well, because you can get, partnering with people like Amit and Brian and getting some information that's going to be helpful for you to step ahead and get a little bit further advancing in your own career.
Thanks, Scott. I would just share with you a little bit on our side, if you will, in dealing with dentalcorp, with Nick on the procurement side. When it came to buying PPE, that compliance and meeting, Health Canada and regulatory, as much as you're the gorilla in the room for sure, but meeting regulatory and compliance was never ever an issue, and whatever was provided, price is always important, but compliance and meeting regulatory and for us to be able to provide that information was critically important. So from my perspective on that, from the procurement side, I felt that dentalcorp was at all times doing the best thing for each of the partners in what they did and what they were working for to provide you. I thought they did a pretty good job.
I would agree, Cy. And we had the problem with the gowns. That problem, Nate said, don't worry about that. We've got you covered. And they did. We were going to buy all these washing machines and all this grandiose ideas, and it was just swatted by and was handled. And so I agree 100% with that.
I hear you on that. Well, we bought a lot of gowns, so you're not getting paid tonight, but I can send you 100 gowns, no charge tomorrow. Just send me a quick text, no problem. So but just moving along a little bit to your experiences, Scott, so back to you again. From a day-to-day standpoint, what's changed at the clinic, and how did you feel about the changes when you joined dentalcorp, and Did anyone feel like they had lost any sense of control or any of those aspects in the clinic? What type of experience did you have there?
Well, on a day-to-day operations, I feel like, I can't keep up with everything right now. It's just so busy. So that's a good thing. I like to be busy. I don't mind staying late and working. And I would say that has been very status quo. I don't notice a big change there in terms of operations and someone doing something that wasn't happening before, other than we've become better. I think the accountability, we've become a little bit more looking at what's happening within the walls of our office. I think that that's been a bonus in terms of people not just sitting there doing the work, because my kind of mentor as I grew up was always about you take care of the patient, the money will take care of itself. Well, you also have to be accountable for what the money is doing. So I think there's that, and also buying different things within our office. We're kind of looking at that. I love seeing my implant fees go down, so that I can get a better deal on buying implants. And that's a huge deal for me. If I can get a much better percentage off, then that's going to help me in the long run. So there's a win-win type of thing that happens. I really haven't seen a lot of negativity or things that have changed for the worse with this kind of joining. I think that there's going to be change. Change is always going to give you a little bit of stress. I think if I said, going through the process, counting all the things I had in my office, all the chairs and all stuff, I hated that. I don't like counting chairs, but you have to do it. You have to count what you have to know what you're going to sell and what dentalcorp is going to get. So it's just part of that, but that wasn't a big deal. It was just something you had to do. But I would say that the experience is very dynamic. I can't wait to get to meetings, because I've been to meetings with dentalcorp. When I was in the process of searching out and finding out about different things, I went to a couple meetings with dentalcorp on a social level, and I'm looking forward to that. I really am. So I think that I would not say that there's a lot of change. I feel like it's still my baby, even though I know it's not. What I do know is that I still want to work as long as my body can let me work. And this is a great way for me to be productive and be part of something bigger, because I'm a big believer in team play, because there's so many more things I can get, Cy, that I can't really have, whether it's the digital funnel that I'm experiencing. I'm seeing more patients come through the front door than they ever have through Google, because we have the ability to have that digital funnel of patients coming through that we just didn't know how to do before. So I think, there's really good stuff.
That's great. Thanks, Scott. Again, with my experience, I can share with you actually firsthand that without any question whatsoever, dentalcorp throws the best parties in the industry ever. So when the chance comes up, make sure you don't miss it. Brian, make sure. Brian, as a specialist, do your associates feel motivated? This is an interesting one, not being owners, but do the associates feel motivated? And how do they feel when you join dentalcorp? And what's in it for them now?
So that's a great question to pose to a specialist, because our practice is in that way, sort of very different. The succession and how associates, become partners, especially in oral surgery, is very different. And it's very expensive. I mean, when I bought into this practice, which was 15 years ago, it was expensive. And as our next partner, Peter Julius, bought in, it was more expensive. And, what was interesting about our journey was we had two other senior associates who, by the way, the one thing in our group and in the Crescent group is, and we tell every associate who joins here, we're going to treat you like a partner, and we expect you to treat this practice as an owner. And so for us, a very large concern in this process was making sure that all the associates we had were aligned, making sure that we were transparent with them, and that they felt like they were really part of the decision-making process. Because number one, we have a lot of respect for them. Number two, we like them a lot. And number three, they're big cogs in this wheel that we've got here, and really we needed them to come along for this. And so what's interesting is one of the conundrums, or one of the issues we ran into in our negotiation was we had two senior, very productive associates who at the same time were looking at a traditional partnership route with us, which to them they realized was tremendously expensive and was something that they, I think, were having a tough time making that jump. dentalcorp really, again, stepped up to the plate, and if there's any maxillofacial surgeons on this Zoom meeting tonight with associates, it was a fantastic way to get these guys into the fold. We were able to really align our two senior associates as partners of the three of us. So we're now a partnership of 5. In a very smooth, like, again, Nate and Graham were really creative in the way they made that happen. And the other nice thing is we have these 2 young associates and a third one joining us likely this summer, who are very excited about this. Partly because I think they see this is the way that things are moving. As you asked Amit the question about 10 years, and I think over the next 10 years, there's going to be a lot more practices under the dentalcorp banner. And so I think they're of that generation where this is very exciting to them. They see this, they see the growth mindset of dentalcorp. They see our growth mindset. We attract, I think, associates who are hungry to grow. So they're excited. And the other thing is we were honest with them and letting them know that this is going to be a far easier way for them financially to align themselves with us in dentalcorp than it would have otherwise been had they de novo kind of been buying into to our practice as associates. So for us, it's been, I think the short answer to your question is they feel very motivated, and I think that there's a real good sense of unity within our group moving forward, and we seem to still fortunately be attracting young associates who want to join our group, which is, I think, all signs are pointing in the right direction.
Great, thanks, Brian. Amit, over the years, dentists have, you read surveys and you see things, and oftentimes one of the biggest concerns for dentists is their level of busyness and attracting new patients and getting growth. So what kinds of ideas has dentalcorp suggested to drive growth in the patient experience? And are there any programs of note that help drive dentistry and patient flow?
Great question. So within dentalcorp, there's a huge focus on continuing education. Through DC Institute or DCI, there are many courses that are available to both dentists and the staff in the office. The idea being that if you can train your dentist to do more procedures than they would have otherwise done and do them competently and safely, then you're going to drive organic growth. So that's growth within each practice by keeping some procedures in-house that they otherwise wouldn't have done. Simultaneously, that makes things more convenient for the patients, and they're happy to get the work done in the same place that they're used to coming to. So that's one example. Another idea is the DC Engage program that was launched sometime last year. And one of the functionalities that it's going to provide is it will allow our patients to book online real time. So if I've got a potential patient that is looking at going to a new dental office, they'll be able to book their appointment directly into my schedule just off the web. They don't have to wait till tomorrow for my staff member to give them a call or respond to an email. And I haven't been able to offer this sort of functionality for the last 20 years because the dental program that we're on, a lot of them are quite ancient. And so I'm super excited about that. Another initiative that we had was with the iTero scanners. So after I joined, we purchased 8 iTero scanners for 8 of my practices. And the goal was to scan every patient. And we've been using these scanners to scan every patient, create a digital record of what their dentition looks like, and educate them. And the funny thing is, you would think the iTero scanner is driving ortho business, but it's actually driving other dental business as well. So it's really cool from that perspective. The last thing I would want to touch on is something called Hello Dent. Hello Dent is an online directory which lists dentists in your area. And this was launched early on during COVID, and it was so timely because there was a period of time where not all dental offices were open. Not all dental offices were equipped to handle emergencies. And so this program was able to direct our emergencies to the clinics that were open. And that worked out very well at that time. Now, since then, we've been able to use Hello Dent to attract new patients to our practices as well. So these are some ways to drive growth, both organic and also from new patients. There are some other ways, but we'll keep those a secret until people join the group.
Thanks, Amit. Brian, as a specialty practice, relying heavily on referrals, what were your initial impressions on how your partnership could augment those existing and potential future relationships in the community? And has that changed in any way now that you've become a member, a partner at dentalcorp?
Yeah, so I think our perception of what the response was going to be is vastly different than what the response has been. I mean, again, as you mentioned, we have great partnerships with hundreds and hundreds of dentists in the GTA, great referrals, great relationships with them. And besides, I touched before on how one of our big concerns was making sure our associates were well aligned in this process. And our other real big concern that we had, and one of the big stresses, was how are our referrals going to respond to this? What's going to be kind of their take on what we're deciding to do from a business standpoint? And if you would have asked me or any of my 4 partners a year ago, pre-pandemic, what the response could be, we would have all said, yeah, we're a bit concerned that we might end up with some bad PR from some of our referrals. And so what's interesting is you fast forward, and it's been the exact opposite. I can say there's 2 groups of referrals. There's those that probably don't even know or don't care. But interestingly, there's a huge number of them that are asking questions, and they're reaching out, and they reached out to us very quickly, and who are interested in going this route. And that was something that caught my partners and I by surprise. It wasn't something that we predicted. So it has not affected, for any specialists out there on this Zoom, it certainly hasn't affected referral patterns at all. I think things are probably status quo. We are maybe seeing, although I can tell you that dentalcorp certainly, and Amit and Scott can speak to this, they don't push dentists to refer patients anywhere. So no one has been told, now that Crescent Oral Surgery is our oral surgery group, this is where you have to go. That certainly has not happened. But I think that organically it may be happening to some extent. We're starting to see some new referral patterns, I think, which are quite interesting from some dentalcorp partners. But I think in general, the response has been actually surprisingly fantastic.
That's a good one. Thanks very much. Scott, what is your treatment philosophy, and what types of dentists actually join a network like dentalcorp, do you think? And what's the best asset that you bring to the network?
My treatment philosophy, really, if I was to kind of boil down what I'm doing here on the earth, and also what am I doing in my practice. So what am I doing on the earth is I'm trying to replace myself with someone better than myself. Number 1 with my children, number 1 with my practice, number 1 with how I interact. And so if you take that to a practice philosophy, my philosophy is to improve other people's quality of life. And if I can teach my team that, and also to be part of an organization that we try to do this for people. That's one of the reasons I joined, is so that I can become educated more myself, also share educational tools that I have myself over the years developed. And not to say that I know it all, but there's things that I can share, and there's all kinds of things that I can learn, because dentistry is just a vast way to do things. So it said earlier that, you know, if you can make people more qualified to do what they're going to do and do it in a really great way, that leads to better quality of life for your patient. It also leads to a less stressful type of life. And certainly we want to have integrity, and have, you don't want to have someone that's over your shadowing what you do to be a negative type of force. And I know that that could happen if in the wrong type of philosophy that's been, directed by the group. Now, so I think that from a practice philosophy, it certainly helped a lot for me to not have, any debts in my life, and have the evaluations be honored. And I know that the evaluations have gone up. I'm seeing more people joining dentalcorp than I've ever seen. And so evaluations have gone up through the pandemic, when you think that they might go down. And so all these things add up to, I think, a really strong organization that they think about not just buying practice, that they think about how to keep people happy within the practice, which is really critical. If you're going to join something, you don't want to join something and then become miserable because someone gives you some money. It can be all kinds of money, but you can be dead unhappy for the rest of your practice if you're not with the right organization. And so it's really, really important to take the time and look at it, make sure it's good for you. It was awesome for me, but I'm sure it would be awesome for you too. But you take the time, go meet with your directors in your area, talk to someone who has dentalcorp on the end of their email address, but also talk to people who don't, so you can find out what the reality is. If you want to give me a call, I'll tell you what it's real and what's not real, because it's really important to have your own philosophy, have your own reason why you get up every day and do your work, because it's not just about money. Once you have money in life and you have your comfort, it's more about how are you going to become a happy person. And the way I see it is, you're going to become a happy person by being very competent in what you do, having good skills, and then also having challenges in your life that you use those skills to get to. So I think that's really one of the reasons I've joined here. And I did my homework and I looked around, and I think that this is a really great spot for me to be right now.
Thanks, Scott. Well, we're going to switch now to some things that you talked on, because I'm sure that many people listening and that is the question of valuations, whether they're up, whether they're down, how's the pandemic affected it. So I think it's important, and I'll have some wrap-up thoughts on that a little bit later. But Amit, on valuations, you feel that the evaluations are fair compared to clinics being sold through brokerages? And what process is easy? What's the process easy to understand when you were exploring the opportunity? Did you do the comparisons? Did you go through the homework? How do you feel about that?
Okay, so thank you, Cy. My history with this is that I've bought practices through brokers, I've sold practices through brokers, and I've sold my own practices directly to dentalcorp. So I've got experience from all angles. And I would say that in most cases, yes, the valuations are favorable, or sorry, fair compared to clinics being sold through brokerages. Prices can be comparable, and sometimes much higher in a sale to dentalcorp. And another bonus is, if you don't have to pay a commission on the sale of your practice, this can be a significant cost savings in the transaction. Another difference is, when you sell through a broker, you no longer have control over the practice. So the person buying the practice does. And the new buyer could fire you at any time, or run things very differently, make drastic changes where you may want to leave at that point. With a dentalcorp sale, that doesn't happen. You're still able to lead the practice the way that you always have been doing. Again, with an individual buyer sale, another risk is their ability to close. They're working through a bank to get financing. Sometimes that doesn't work out. Or their situation may change while you're waiting for the closing to happen, and they say they can't close the deal anymore. So that's not a risk that I've seen come up with dentalcorp. And another thing that rarely gets talked about is the financial gains after selling your practice. So generally, if you sell through a broker, I haven't really seen too many deals where you get any upside when after you sell, if the practice does better than it was doing when you owned it. Whereas with a dentalcorp deal, you've got the ability to share in the growth of the practice even after you sell your practice, which I think is great. A point that Scott touched on earlier was about the shares. And a friend of mine, I have a short story about that. He was looking at selling his practice about 7 or 8 years ago. And he looked at the brokers, he looked at dentalcorp, and he was actually getting exactly the same price from both. The difference was the dentalcorp offer had some shares attached to it on top of getting the same cash price. So from his standpoint, he didn't know too much about the company, didn't know whether the shares were going to be worth anything or not. So he thought, all right, I'll take the same money and some shares in a company that I don't know too much about. When you fast forward 7 or 8 years later, the shares that were kind of in his mind like a throw-in were worth at least as much as the practice that the cash that he got for his practice. So he ended up getting about double what he thought he would get for his practice when he sold. So I thought that was a great story.
It's a good one. Along the same lines, Amit, is, in some dentists, not unlike yourself, that join and partner with dentalcorp, they want to continue to grow and they want to add to the number of locations that they have. And so how do practice acquisitions work within the organization?
So, Cy, there's two main ways that you can grow after you become a partner. The first is called a satellite, and that's when you might add an existing practice to your group of practices. So you may know of a practice that's for sale where the dentist selling wants to offer a shorter commitment after selling their practice. You'd be able to bring this practice into your group. And the nice thing about it is dentalcorp would put up the money to buy the practice, and you would have the ability to participate in the growth of the practice. Personally, I would want to take on a satellite situation because it's a practice with a track record. You're going to get a dentist who has worked that practice for many years, helping you lead the practice, and then you'll get paid to stabilize the practice by adding associates and eventually growing it. So it's a great way to grow your business within dentalcorp. The second way of growing would be via something called a tuck under. And that's when you acquire a practice that has a short-term lease and not too much time left in their existing location. And you move the doctor, you move some staff, you move the charts into your existing practice, which has the capacity to take on more patient volume. So an example would be you built out this beautiful practice and it's got 7 operatories and you're using 4 of them or 5 of them. And you've got these 2 other ops that are never being used. Well, if you can find a dentist down the street with a couple of operatories in use and they're looking to sell, it could be the perfect marriage where that dentist would get paid in full for their practice. And then you could move their patient base and their staff into your practice and get some benefits from filling up your capacity.
Okay, great. Brian, it's been interesting in listening to you and Scott that are a little bit new to it. And these are large transactions and life-changing, if you will. So, and having heard from you, the process wasn't perfect or completely stress-free. What advice would you give to others considering a similar path to yours, or any tips or advice that you would be willing to share to make things go a little bit smoother?
It's a great question. Again, I think that our journey was somewhat unique, but I think a lot of the lessons learned can certainly be extrapolated across the board. So in a couple of words, and then I'll elaborate on it, I think you need to be, number one, realistic. I think you need to be realistic about what you have to sell. And I think you need to be open-minded and flexible. So, you know, one of the things in any transaction like this, and ours was a little more complicated because of some of the things I mentioned before, the two senior associates trying to align them as partners, 5 different personalities trying to marry one entity. There was every once in a while, there'd be a hiccup, right? And it's very easy when you hit one of these hiccups to kind of get frustrated and step back from the process and let it get away from you. And so, number one, I think, again, as I said, open-minded. You need to understand wherever there's a hiccup or wherever you hit a snag, there's going to be a solution. We had very willing partners on the other side of the table who were really willing to look for a solution and very creative in ways that blew me away many times. When I thought there wasn't a solution, there would be a very creative solution. You know, there are a number, many of you maybe know that I'm an avid runner, and I like to run marathons, and I liken this to a marathon, right? This was like we were at the 20th, 21st mile of a marathon for a while. And that's the point in the marathon when you hit the so-called wall. And the one piece of advice I'd give anyone entering this journey is keep your eye on the prize, right? So get through all the noise and keep your eye on the finish line, because you're going to get there with this group for sure. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, I think the 2 or 3 words, open-minded, flexible, and realistic are the key things, I think, entering a process like this.
Thanks, Brian. So maybe as we just move along to try to get through the list, I'm going to sort of some questions that doctors have sent in. Try to keep them brief so we can get the answers as brief as you might do to work our way through. So Scott, market might seem a bit risky now. That's debatable given everything you guys have shared with us tonight. But the doc that says I want to wait to get my numbers up, get my numbers back up before I sell. So why would I want to transact now?
I think one of the number one things, you've seen how much money that we've had to spend through COVID. And I think that, you know, government has done a good job doing this. And certainly there's always direction, but where's that money going to come from? There's going to be some tax changes, I think, that are going to happen. One of the big worries I had, and one of the things that drove me a little bit further, was the capital gain and exemption that you get when you make when you do a purchase up to a certain amount. And so you can take that and apply it to also your spouse. So in terms of that capital gain exemption, I think in the future that if that goes, then you lose a big advantage. You know, in terms of a few years ago, we saw them taking some of our advantage as being a professional corporation away, you know, with spousal, sharing with your income and things like that. And, you know, even my children, I used to be able to have some benefits that have all gone. And so in 1 year, I didn't, the very first night that I found out about this, I didn't sleep all night because all of a sudden the taxation, you know, was really heavy compared to what I said. So I would think that you're getting your cash up front. There's a real value for that. When you get your cash up front, is what you do with it, whether you invest it or do something else with it. But like, you're getting your cake and you're eating it too. And you're getting more value next year if you can. And so there's a lot of things that you have to think about that are out of your control with how that money can be worth double now. So if you can boost your practice up to cover off that, go for it. But really, you could get maybe double, because you could be waiting and lose something like that. I think that capital gain was in the back of my head through the whole discussion. Anyway, I took too long, sorry.
Nice job, though. Amit, quick, this is a yes or no question, buddy. If you want equipment and technology, will dentalcorp purchase it for you? And what about major renovations? Will they support you with that and through, for growth and if you will, for compliance and regulatory?
Yes. Do we have to get it from Schein?
Absolutely. No, this is not an infomercial tonight, but thanks for the plug. I appreciate it. Brian, is there any question? We talked about compliance and regulatory and the great job that the folks at dentalcorp do a great deal with us, I will admit. Do you get to keep using the same products and materials that work well in your hands that you've always used?
Absolutely. There's, whether it's from material standpoint or just the day-to-day workings of the office, I think if I didn't know that we did this, that this partnership occurred, I wouldn't know that this partnership occurred. Things are really pretty much status quo at the office.
Great, thanks, Brian. So a couple of random questions, maybe back to Scott. We actually answered that one about how the pandemic has impacted the valuation of dental practice. Let me just take that one for a minute myself, actually. And you've talked about it as well, but dental practices, if you're going to buy something, it's not necessarily what happened in 2020 through the pandemic. Accountants will call this a one-time event. You might look at 3 years, or if you look at the back half. And quite frankly, for anybody that's going to go to market and look at these things, I think that all of you have provided excellent guidance and information. Go and do your gosh darn homework, and you'll find out where these things are. I don't want to go into it, but I would submit to you that given the rebound that we're seeing, I honestly believe that dentistry is coming back, will come back. As simple as I am selling cotton balls, I can tell you over 40, 50 years, toothaches don't go away. They're not going anywhere, and dentistry will continue. So I think that's really a question of homework, where people are thinking about dental practices being of less value. I don't want to get in Nate's way or whatever the case may be, but I don't think that there's ever a bad time to explore your opportunities and your business opportunities to move forward with success. In the interest of time, let me ask you, each of you, a bit of a wrap-up question. And it's the thing about, so what now? What's next? We've talked about it a little bit before, but with you, with dentalcorp, with others, as I shared the other night, try 25 words or 25 words or less of what do you see now? What do you see coming in the mid to short term? For yourself at dentalcorp, for the industry in general, the profession. Scott.
I see people looking inward at their health, and we are certainly on the forefront of that. And I look forward to, better health and trying to be looking after people's teeth, having my own teeth be good, and just getting to have a beer with you, Cy, with dentalcorp as well. Those kind of things make life fun. It's all about, in my mind, working so that you feel like you're having some enjoyment in life, and also taking time off and also enjoying that. Catching fish, golfing, whatever you have to do.
Perfect. Brian.
Yeah, I think, professionally is to keep doing what we're doing, taking care of patients, whether in our offices or hospitals that we cover, and growing. And, we have an appetite to grow, as does dentalcorp. So with that mindset and on a personal level, yeah, getting to actually shake each of your hands at some point in time. And hopefully we'll be able to do that again and have a beer together.
Yeah, professionally, I want to grow. I want to get back to where we were and continue to go beyond. And I want all of us to be successful. In terms of a lot of the questions that came up today, I would say that if you're thinking about selling, or you've got some of these considerations coming up, like a lease ending, etc. If you're just curious about the opportunity, I would reach out to a business development director and see what your options are. It might be a decision that changes your path, something that maybe you never thought you would do. So from that perspective, I would definitely give them a shot. It may be best decision you've made. From on a personal level, I'm just looking to have more fun. it's been a tough year, and hopefully we can have our partners conference this year in November. So if that happens, those are always a blowout. So I'd love to participate in that if it happens.
Thanks, Amit. So in closing, just a couple things. I think about the people that are probably have tuned into tonight's conversation. I might suspect that for the most part, they're looking into this through a lens of curiosity, and maybe with a combination of some anxiety of what the future holds and those sorts of things. And I think that's all fair and interesting, and I highly respectful and grateful for the perspective that each of you have provided, and answers to the questions have been forthright. And I think that the takeaway might be for anybody that's listening with that level of curiosity. And I think for us, Henry Schein as a company, we pride ourselves in offering solutions as well as product and technology and all those things. But I think that the people that have a curiosity for this, where are things going, and is this right for me, or does it fit? I think that you would be remiss, as you've all talked about, if you didn't actually do your homework and reach out to dentalcorp and listen to their story. And then you can validate that, as you've all suggested, by talking to colleagues, to other folks, and find out if it's the right thing for you. And in some cases, it may not be, but I would suggest to you that anybody that's looking at or considering anything of this nature, you would be remiss if you didn't go sit and listen to the story and see if it's right for you. And I think that we've had validation from Brian and Scott and Amit that their experiences have been positive ones. Not always easy, they never are. But at the same time, at the end, I go back to the trust issue. Is the organization is well intended, it's competent, and they will execute their do-say ratio. So I think that's something to take away. So to the panelists, to Dr. Brian Rittenberg, to Dr. Scott MacLean, Dr. Amit Puri, thank you so much for the engaging conversations. And nobody looks more forward to a beer and a hug than I do. So with that, I leave you all, and thank you for your participation. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.